The 546th edition of the MMA Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Play their fantasy pickup for a chance to win 100 times your entry in NBA, MLB, NHL, golf, and more. Sign up today using promo code MMASGPN to get a 100% deposit match. And we're also brought to you by the premier arbitrage sports betting tool, AVO. Use their tool to bet both sides and lock in a profit. Access their platform for free at arbsversusodds.com. That's ARBS versus odds.com.
Howdy ho, Degenerinos. Welcome to episode 546 of the MMA Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. This episode is going out to Edouard Julien for no reason other than we were just talking about him. He's a baseball player, apparently, from Quebec. So thank you for hitting all those home runs, Edouard Julien, even though you're not on my fantasy team. I'm one of the hosts of this here show, Jeff Chalks Fox. We are not talking about baseball. You can go to the MLB Gambling Podcast for that. They do a heck of a job there. No, we're talking about the PFL again. Why we talk about the PFL? Because they have an event running this week. You want another reason why? Because my co-host went perfect with his PFL picks last week. All right, so that's more than enough reason to be covering PFL. Yesterday we covered the prelim. So if you want to hear all his prelim picks, including a bunch of underdogs, make sure you listen to that episode or watch it or both if you have not already. Today is all about the main card picks. This man knows what to talk about when it comes to non-UFC. I want to say regional, but this isn't really regional. So we'll say non-UFC. Non-UFC events. It would be the one and only Daniel Gumby. Then tell the people your record this year.
I don't have the wins and losses right in front of me, but I do know when I updated my spreadsheet with the PFL winnings, I'm up about 15 units on the year. So it's
Fantastic.
yeah, we had a hot start and we've pretty much stayed pat since then, which is and again, this is not the little shtick we do here on this show. If you're not familiar with it, is we do a pretend $100 on every single fight, which is not the best way to make money. But that's the way we break them down and the way we talk about them. So you do a little bit better if you pick and choose your spots. And on this episode, I've got a spot or two that I would tell you that you can play a little bit more heavier than you usually play your spots.
Really?
Yeah, they're one in particular I think is just silly. We'll talk about how silly it is.
Silly fight lines. That's what we like to see. So, of course, this is PFL 3 we're talking about. Their regular season, 2024 regular season. It's happening in Chicago, Illinois this coming Friday night. The prelims are at 6:30. We covered that, like I said, yesterday's episode. So the main card will be, what are we talking? Do you know what time? With their
pacing, 1 a.m.
Yeah. Probably 10, I'm guessing, would be maybe the real answer here. 6:30 is kind of a interesting time to start. Should I have known this in advance? Probably, but it's all on
ESPN Plus, though. You just turn on ESPN Plus and it just rolls straight on through.
Yes, there you go. Roll straight on through. So there you go. Gumby put a positive spin on it. So make sure you check it out. This week is all about the welterweights and the featherweights. And there's going to be a mixture of both on this here fight card. And apparently there's one spot that you're really interested in, you said?
There's one that I think is silly. Yes, I think
silly. Oh, we like silly on this show. We also like our friends at the Golf Gambling Podcast. They just completed, obviously, the biggest weekend of the year in golf. The Masters was last weekend, and in honor of it, they gave away a Spider Tour X putter, which apparently is a good thing, from what I've been told. So, obviously, you're going to want to follow and listen to that show because this is not the first time they've given away cool prizes. So that would be sportsgamblingpodcast.com is where you can find all our podcasts. This one is the Golf Gambling Podcast. Make sure you subscribe, watch them on YouTube, all that good stuff. All right, let's dive into some fights here and see how long it takes before we get to this silly line that we're going to get into. 6 fights on the card. We're starting things off with a featherweight fight. Bubba Jenkins, United States of America versus Kai Kamaka III. 3 5-minute rounds. We're going to tell you about Mr. Kamaka first, the fighting Hawaiian. He tells you his profession and he tells you where he's from, all in a nickname. So it's a very useful nickname. He is 12-5-1, 1 knockout, 1 submission. He's been knocked out twice. This is his PFL debut. He's won 3 straight fights, and he's gone 4-0-1 over his last 5. So he's on a nice little run here. He's not lost since April of 2022. 6-1 in Bellator, 2-1 in the UFC. Used to fight at bantamweight, 2012 pro MMA debut. 7 years younger than Jenkins, minus 105. Bubba Jenkins, bad man, is the nickname. 21 and not Batman. He's a bad man. 21-7, 6 knockouts, 5 submissions. He's been knocked out 4 times, submitted twice. 7-3 in PFL. He's gone 2-1 over his last 3, 2-2 over his last 4. Got TKO'd in his last fight. Was regional champion, 8-3 in Bellator. 2011 pro MMA debut. Was a wrestling champion on a world stage level champion in wrestling. Inch of reach over Kamaka, minus 125.
I thought you were going to say that his nickname was the Wrestling American after you said,
Yeah, it's true. That would be a better nickname. Very good one. Very good, Gumby.
Yeah. Look at that. I doing your jokes for you. This is already the line I think is crazy. How is Bubba Jenkins not like a negative 300 favorite in this fight? It's not that I don't like Kai Kamaka and that I don't think that Kai Kamaka is tough or something like that. Like his boxing's good. I liked him all the way back when he was in the UFC. He had that fight with the guy who nobody likes anymore, Adrian Yanez knocked him out and then flipped him off. Do you know who I'm talking about? I think he's racist if I'm remembering right. Whatever it is. Tony Kelly. Tony Kelly is his name. Kai Kamaka's fight with Tony Kelly was a lot of fun. I liked watching that fight with Tony Kelly.
I thought you meant you cut out there, so I didn't hear all the horrible things you said about the person.
I think you paused, but I was just talking about how Tony Kelly's maybe a racist or a terrible guy in some way, shape, or form. I can't remember why we hate Tony Kelly. We hate Tony Kelly, right? Like that's a thing.
I don't know. It's hard to keep track of who to hate in MMA because there's so much to hate. The intern's going to get on it and see if we should hate Tony Kelly. So,
all right, cool. In the meantime, he's the one who set the bad
legal troubles and controversies, it says on his Wikipedia page. So there you go.
Yeah, he's the one who said
looks like
she's a dirty Brazilian cheater. That's what they do, or something like that. He's the one who said that. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, I liked Kai Kamaka's fight with him. It showed that he's got really great boxing. He's looked good since he's left the UFC and Bellator and all that kind of stuff. I just don't think he can stop the wrestling of Bubba Jenkins. Bubba Jenkins is a damn good wrestler. Like he's an exceptionally good wrestler. So for all of us to just sit here and say like negative 125 on Bubba Jenkins that he can't like lay and pray on Kai Kamaka, and he's not even like a lay and pray guy, like right, like his top game actually does damage, and he's got submission skills and all that kind of stuff. But he could just lay and pray for 15 minutes and win this fight. Man, I think Jenkins is just going to take it to him. Negative 125 for me is an absolute steal here.
Is this a silly line, Gumby?
This is the silly line. Sure.
We hit it already. Now there's no reason for anyone to listen the rest of the way. No, there is. Gumby's going to find something else silly, right? Or at least profitable.
I've got a silly co-host.
Yeah, there you go. He found someone silly to co-host with him. It's true. We're going way up to welterweights. Goiti Yamauchi from Brazil. You wouldn't guess it with the name, but he's Brazilian and Japanese. Nieman Gracie from Brazil. It's like real last name, not Gracie. Did you know that, Gumby?
Yeah, he's got like 7 names in there.
Yeah. His mom's a Gracie. His dad is a student of the Gracies, so he definitely is schooled in the jiu-jitsu. We'll tell you about him first, Mr. Gracie. 12-4, 1 knockout, 9 submissions. He's been knocked out once. This is his PFL debut. He went 10-4 in Bellator, 2-0 in World Series of Fighting, so he has kind of been with his promotion already. 1-2 over his last 3, 2-2 over his last 4. Did win his last fight. Used to fight at middleweight. BJJ champion, no surprise there. 2013 pro MMA debut, 2 inches taller than Yamauchi, plus 175. It's hard not to say Yamaguchi, isn't it?
Yeah, it's Yamauchi.
Yamauchi is 28-6. 3 knockouts, 21 submissions. He's been knocked out once. This is his debut as well. 14-5 in Bellator. He's won 3 of his last 4. Won his last fight via TKO. Lost his last fight via TKO. That was back in March of 2023. He's fought at featherweight and lightweight, missed at featherweight and lightweight. Now he's at a welterweight. Was regional champion, 2010 pro MMA debut, 5 years younger than Gracie, minus 215.
Yeah, ignore the bottom line there. I don't know why it says featherweight there. That's a mistype on my part. Did you know that this fight is a rematch, Jeff?
Oh, I missed that. I was thinking these guys probably fought. Okay, go ahead. Tell us.
Yeah, they did.
You caught me.
And it's one of those things where like this fight to their first fight is just so obvious to me that like it should happen again here. It's like Nieman Gracie's problem as he's aged is that he's, to your point, so good at jiu-jitsu, right? And I just don't have any faith that he can bring the fight to the mat where he needs it to be. If you watch that fight with Goiti, like he can't get the fight down to the ground, and Yamauchi pieces him up on the feet. Then when he starts to get desperate, Yamauchi hits him with uppercut after uppercut after uppercut, and eventually one sleeps it. But like even within that fight, Yamauchi has got good top control and good wrestling himself. I could see him taking it there and just like making Gracie work off his back, and Gracie would probably be happy to work off of his back. But the problem is that's just like not a winning equation for Nieman in this fight. I think Yamauchi is probably going to continue to piece him up on the feet. He's the much better boxer. He's the better wrestler. The only thing he doesn't really have is the jiu-jitsu here, and I think he dictates whether or not that even becomes part of the equation. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Yamauchi again. I think he wins the rematch. The line is probably right about where I would expect it to be, despite the fact that they fought once before, because Gracie is kind of, he's dangerous with his jiu-jitsu if you bring it there, but I don't think he gets it there. So, yeah, give me Yamauchi here.
All righty. Moving right along. Going to featherweights now. Gabriel Alves, Braga, Brazil. Justin Gonzales, United States of America. 3 5-minute rounds, 145 pounds. Gonzales, J-Train, 14-3, 4 knockouts, 1 submission. This is his PFL debut. He's won 2 straight. Before that, he lost 2 straight. Before that, he won 2 straight. So 0-2, 2-2. 3-3 in Bellator, was the LFA champion, 1-0 Dana White Contender Series, was regional champion, plus 200. Braga, 12-1, 5 knockouts. He's been knocked out once. 4-1 PFL, lost his last fight via TKO, so that was his only career loss. That was in the finals to Olivier Aubin Mercier. Wait a minute, this is featherweight. So he lost to, who did he lose to, Gumby? Do you remember?
Jesus Pinedo.
See, it shows how up to date I am on my PFL. Used to fight at bantamweight, 7 years younger than Gonzales, minus 260.
Yeah, and in that fight with Pedro, so I'm going to go Braga here. Despite the look for an underdog in this card, I don't think we found it here. Braga was backing up Pinedo, which is not easy to do. Pinedo likes to bite down on his mouthpiece and come forward, and Braga was giving him some looks that he didn't like and had him backing up a little bit. And I think that's really all he needs to do here against Gonzales. I think Gonzales is probably going to try to throw with him here, in addition to not really loving his wrestling game whatsoever. I also just think Gonzales will probably want to throw. He seems like the kind of guy who will be swayed into being like, oh, I get 6 points if I get a first-round knockout here, and just going kind of a little bit nuts. He's a dude who seems like he throws like kind of caution to the wind once in a while. And I've seen him get tagged by guys who are like not even as good of a boxer as he is, just because that's what he does. But I think Braga's 8 times the boxer he is. I think he's going to cut the angles. He's going to back him up against the cage. He's probably going to let go once he gets close, and I think he's going to tag Gonzales. So, yeah, give me Braga here. He was in the finals for last year for a reason.
All right, there you go. All right, before we move on, we're going to tell you about our friends at Underdog Fantasy once I get it up on my screen. Yes, Underdog Fantasy is the easiest place to play fantasy sports. It's also the fastest growing fantasy app in the industry. All you have to do is pick higher or lower on stat totals for between 2 and 5 players, fighters, whatever sport you're interested in. You hit them all, you can win 100 times your money in a single night. Sign up today with our promo code MMA SGPN and get your first deposit doubled up to $100, as well as instant pick'em special, and you make us look good as well using our code. So it's win-win. Everyone wins. Visit underdogfantasy.com or find them in the App Store, and don't forget to register with our promo code MMA SGPN. Get your first deposit doubled up to $100, as well as an instant pick'em special. You must be 18 or older and present in the state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Concern with your play, call 1-800-522-4700 or visit www.ncpgambling.org. All righty, we're moving back up to welterweights. Logan Storley, United States. Shamil Musaev from Russia. 3 5-minute rounds. Musaev is the silent assassin. If you announce that you're a silent assassin, you're not a silent assassin. I suggest his nickname be nothing. He's 16-0-1, 9 knockouts, 2 submissions. This is his debut. He won his last fight via TKO. Before that, he had a draw. Used to fight at lightweight, 2013 pro MMA debut. 2 years younger than Storley, an inch taller, plus 145. Storley, 15-2 with 9 knockouts. Never been finished in a fight. This is his debut as well in the PFL. He went 10-2 in Bellator. He's won 4 of his last 5, won his last fight via TKO. He was an All-American in wrestling. He's at minus 175.
I'm actually gonna go dog here. I'm gonna take Musaev.
There we go.
You know, we talked about in our last show about guys having Russian sounding last names and just assuming they can wrestle. And obviously, if that was the case, he's fighting Logan Storley, not a great guy to have to wrestle against. But that's actually not Musaev's game plan here. Shamil Musaev is a guy who he's actually like a wushu or a sanda fighter. So you're gonna see like a lot of like weird spinning stuff out of him. Like he throws a spinning back fist. His last fight, he actually ended. Well, it didn't end with the spinning back kick, but the beginning of the end was the spinning back kick, and then he wound up back in, was it Kushenko? He fought Kushenko last, I think, which is who was in the UFC for a hot minute. And Musaev is just like, he's really sharp on the feet. The other thing is because of where he's fought his whole career, which is like a little bit in like M1, a little bit in KSW. Like he's fought for a lot of like the bigger promotions out of that part of the world. He's fought a lot of wrestlers, and his wrestling defense holds up. So like we've seen him, you know, go in there with strikers and obviously look way better than him. We've seen him go in there with wrestlers and stuff him enough so that he can stay on the feet. And if you watch Logan Storley's fight with Michael Page, which granted he wins, I will give him that. He wins that fight with Michael Venom Page. He has trouble getting to Page. He certainly doesn't want any piece of Page on the feet. And he had kind of a tough time keeping Michael Page down all the time. And I think if you take sort of the same sort of game plan for Musaev and then just give him more takedown defense than Page has, because, you know, Michael Page, a little bit of takedown defense, but not a ton. I think Musaev's takedown defense winds up being a little bit better. I think we see a similar look on the feet to what Storley looked like against Page, and that's really enough for Musaev here. So I know it's kind of a unknown guy up against a known commodity, but I actually think the smart play here is Musaev.
So the Russian guy is going to be afraid to get taken down. That's
it's like if you're just like if you were a Tapology handicapper, you might not not get that. You didn't insult me by saying I'm a Tapology handicapper.
No, I talked about how great you did. That's the thing. So because it's true.
Yeah. I guess that's true and not as fun to talk about.
No, it's true. It's not as fun to talk about how great Gumby is. We're up to the co-main event already, people. Brendan Loughnane. You mentioned him, I think, yesterday, actually. He's from England. He's fighting Pedro Carvalho, technically from Brazil, but he's from Portugal, really? Pedro Carvalho? Yeah. Anyhow, he's Irish now, through and through. He's been training in Ireland for quite a while. This is 3 5-minute rounds at 145 pounds, and I'm going to tell you about Carvalho. First, the game is the nickname. He's 13-8, 2 knockouts, 6 submissions. He's been knocked out 3 times, submitted once. This is his debut in PFL. He went 6-5 in Bellator. He's lost 2 straight and only won 1 of his last 4. Lost via TKO his last fight. He's fight at lightweight, regional champion, 2012 pro MMA debut. 6 years younger than Loughnane, an inch taller, plus 375. Loughnane, 27-5, 15 knockouts, 1 submission. He's been knocked out once. Durable guy, 9-2 in PFL, was the 2022 champion. He's been 5 of his last 6. He did get knocked out in his last fight. 1-0 on Contender Series. He's fight at lightweight, was regional champion, 0-1 in the UFC, 1-1 in the Ultimate Fighter, 2010 Pro MMA debut, minus 500. He's one of those guys that's surprising he didn't get more of a shot at the UFC, but here he is trying to make another $1 million.
Well, it's because he shot that weird takedown against Bill Algeo,
it's
right?
True.
And then also, I'm gonna so first of all, I'm gonna take Loughnane here. I'll sort of take all the anticipation out of this one. I'm not going to talk here, but I'm gonna debate you a little bit about whether or not he's durable. So on the note that he hasn't been knocked out a ton, that's true. But if you watch a lot of his fights, he's been stunned in a lot of his fights. And then so for his last fight to come out as a knockout later on in this season, I would keep an eye on this guy running into somebody like Gabriel Braga and getting knocked out.
Okay.
Because, like he got, was it Sunbin Joe who tagged him? I think it
Don't
was.
ask me.
I think it was Sunbin Joe. I think it was Sunbin Joe who tagged him and then almost followed it up. But I could be wrong. It was somebody like that in the featherweight division. But whatever it is, he's been wobbled a couple of times as of late. So I'm keeping an eye on that. Carvalho is not the guy to do that. The reason I like Loughnane in this fight is if you just watch Pedro Carvalho's fight with Jeremy Kennedy, who I kind of think of is fighting a lot like Loughnane. Like they're long, they box pretty well on the feet, but secretly they kind of like to wrestle more than they'd like to admit. Everything Jeremy Kennedy did, Loughnane could do. and it would be one-way traffic against Carvalho, because Kennedy backed him up against the cage, let his hands go. Then when he didn't like the counters he was seeing back, he shot a takedown and was in on a takedown. And I think Loughnane could do the exact same thing, because that's kind of what he did to Bill Algeo, right? And that's why, I mean, ultimately the UFC didn't give him a contract, but it's like a safe and smart way of fighting is just to like keep boxing him up until you don't like the looks you're getting, and then score a takedown, and then he's going to be afraid to give you that look again. And Carvalho backs up, even more than Algeo does, right? Because Algeo doesn't back up. Algeo gives you weird angles and keeps moving forward.
Yep.
But Loughnane was even able to do that to Algeo. So if he could do it to Algeo, he can do it to Carvalho. And if it happened to Carvalho against Jeremy Kennedy, and I think Loughnane could kind of rinse and repeat that strategy here and just beat him up. So yeah, I like Loughnane quite a bit here. Negative 500, obviously not that tempting, but maybe you look for some like finish props in here too, because he's trying to get it done and get some points in the PFL regular season.
All right, in the smart cage.
In the PFL smart cage TM.
It's so true. All right, main event time. After I tell you about our friends at AVO. It's spelled AVO, pronounced AVO. We're proud to partner up with AVO, the premier sports betting arbitrage tool. If you're new to arbitrage, I'm new to saying it apparently, arbitrage sports betting, it's very simple. Basically betting both sides of a bet at two different sports books to lock in a profit. The AVO tool scans the sports books looking for discrepancies in the odds, and then tells you how much money you need to place with each sports book and the expected profit. Tool is super easy to use and lightning fast. The speed is a big part of our arbitrage sports betting. The best part is AVO is currently free to use without restrictions. That's right, completely free. Get started today at arbsversusodds.com. That's ARBSVSODDS.com. arbsversusodds.com. And just like that, we are at our main event already. And it is welterweight fight. 3 5-minute rounds. Russia versus Russia. Andrey, Koreshkov, Magomed, Umalatov. 3 5-minute rounds on this, and we're going to tell you about, after I get it here, Koreshkov first. The Spartan is 27-4, 14 knockouts, 4 submissions. He's been knocked out twice, submitted once. This is his PFL debut. He went 16-4 in Bellator and was the champion there. He's won 5 straight fights in 6 of 7. He's not fought since July of 2023. He's not lost since October 2019. He used to fight at middleweight, 2010 pro MMA debut. He's a world champion in pancration. He's got inch reach over why am I having trouble with
Umalatov?
Umalatov. Russian is really tripping me up recently. Plus 125. Everything trips me up. What am I saying? Umalatov, a couple Ov versus Ov battle. He is a prince, apparently. He's 14-0, 11 knockouts, 1 submission. 5-0 in PFL, multiple regional championships on his
mantle.
Correct. Used to fight at middleweight, 2 years younger than Koreshkov, minus 155.
I'm going to go with Umalatov here. I actually think he probably would have won last season if he hadn't gotten hurt. He was supposed to be in the PFL playoffs, and he had to drop out of it. I think he had a knee injury, if I'm not mistaken. And I think he probably would have won the welterweight season. Was he welterweight? It was welterweight, right? They had a welterweight season last year.
I think so, yep.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to stand by that. You go ahead and put the intern on it and make sure I'm not crazy.
Who cares?
Now I'm second guessing whether or not. No, he's definitely supposed to be in the playoffs, right? There should be a. You got
I think so.
You got Tapology open. See if there was a canceled fight.
Of course. I always use Tapology. All right, let me see. Canceled about Magomed Karamov, who he's supposed to fight. He withdrew from that, and that was the playoffs.
Yep, perfect. Okay, so yeah, I think he probably would have won that season. I really liked how he looked. If I'm looking long term, I don't really like how when he's trying to throw his power shots, he's like his whole upper body leans forward. He's
definitely you're leaning.
Yeah, I hate people leaning. But at least this one, he's like leaning into his shots instead of like leaning away from them.
Yeah.
He's probably destined to get countered by somebody like Musaev, who's fighting Logan Storley. Like that's the type of guy who would attack him with a counter. But the thing is, Koreshkov, as you mentioned, long Bellator career, incredible Bellator career when you really think about it. But now he's kind of just got like too much mileage on the tires. And I think for me, I think he's gotten so much slower than he was when he was in his prime that Umalatov is just going to pick him apart. And Umalatov, when he hits you, it is enough to put you to sleep. And Koreshkov, just, when you've taken as much abuse as he has at this point in time in his career, and he's just like, he's been in some wars. Like, I just don't think he has what it takes to, like, first of all, be quick enough to catch Umalatov, and then second of all, to be able to, like, take the punch that Umalatov is bringing now. So I think almost this negative 155 is probably a steal on Umalatov. I think the only reason we're doing that is because we see the resume of Koreshkov, but, like, you don't want to bet on somebody based on fights they had 10 years ago when they're fighting today, because he's not that same fighter who won the Bellator title all that time ago. He's a much slower version of that. So yeah, give me Umalatov here. I think the money line here makes a lot of sense.
But it's not silly. It makes sense though.
It's not silly. Not silly. Bubba Jenkins line. Bubba Jenkins line is silly. But no, the Umalatov one is it's good. It's not silly.
All right. Let's recap. He's got Umalatov at a pretty good price. You've got Loughnane at a very steep price for that fight. He's got Musaev as a underdog. That's always nice to see. He's got Braga, moderate favorite. He's got Yamauchi, moderate favorite. And kick things off basically in a pick and fight with Bubba Jenkins with the silly line of minus 125.
So silly.
So silly. And I nailed it all, right? Good. Perfect.
Got it.
We're going to be back tomorrow. We're not done yet with you people this week. Tomorrow's Cage Warriors, right? Yes. And Octagon Thursday, I think is what we decided on. And that's what we're going to do. So we'll talk to you about Cage Warriors tomorrow. In the meantime, we shall be in the Discord, sportsgamblingpodcast.com/Discord. Twitter is SGPN MMA. I'm at Jeff Fox Writer. He's at Gumby Vreeland. I'm Jeff Fox Writer on Instagram as well. Get in my Substack. Check it out. Subscribe if you like what you see. And if you want to enter my weekly pick'em contest for the UFC, that's moneymma.substack.com. Listen to Gumby's Top Turtle MMA podcast. It's good. He has good people on it. Like the guests this week, who are
Austin Lane and Austin Hubbard, who are both fighting at UFC Vegas 90.
It's the Austin episode. So if you're named Austin, you're obligated to listen to that as well. Where else? YouTube. Make sure you subscribe. Even if you don't want to watch us, subscribe. It will help us out. That's Money MMA. Not Money MMA. That's my Substack. MMA Gambling Podcast, obviously, is what you want to look for on YouTube. And then our main site is www.sportsgamblingpodcast.com. Put a /store after that if you want to get cool gear like us. Put a /Patreon after it if you want to help us crush corporate gambling. So like I said, we'll be back tomorrow with the Cage Warriors episode. It'll be the Silent Assassin Jeff Fox and the G Train Gumby Vreeland will be riding shotgun. We'll talk to you then.